Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Jafo Paints. Today we're still working on Massive Darkness. By request, we're finally getting around to Sybil, the Nightshade Ranger from Massive Darkness. Here is what she looks like, unpainted. Of course, I have already primed her with my Mechanicus Standard Gray. You can prime her in gray, white, or gray, white, black. Although black, you are going to get a very different texture and look. So let's go over at least my plan for paints. And I got all my paints here sorted kind of into groupings. So this looks like a lot, and well, by this point, if you watch my videos, you should know it kind of is a lot. So here's my plan. For the green armor, we're going to do a 4-part step. We're going to do Castellan green, using some Athonian camo shade, then some Strachan green, and finally some Nurgling green to kind of give her that foresty look. For her skin, we got our ever-loving 4-part series of Bugman's Glow, a Reikland flesh shade, the Cadian flesh tone, and finally Kislev flesh. For the bow and the quiver, we're going to do a form of a blue-green teal color. We'll start with some Stegodon scale green. We'll then add some Coelia green shade to that. Then we'll add some Sotek green and top it off with some Temple Guard blue. And finally, the highlighting materials that I've got for us today. For the arrow fletchings and any leather pouches, we always use our XV88 as a leather. For the hair, we're going to use Steel Legion Drab, possibly some Morphing Brown, and we'll ink that with Nuln Oil. And as always, we go on all of our videos. We're just going to kind of go as we see. So I think the best thing to do, and you know what? My assistant forgot to help me get out some stuff, so I think we're going to do here, we're going to use some Xandrie Dust, some Ushabti Bone, and some Agarax Earthshade. And that is what we're going to be to get her armor. On the picture, her armor just kind of blends right into her skin tone, or at least her body armor. And if you look here on her model, as I zoom in, it is very hard to tell the difference between armor and flesh in some spots. So we're going to try and make this look best we can. And that's what we got for you today. So I think we're going to start off with the biggest, baddest piece of them all. And we're going to start with that body armor. So the first thing we're going to get ready is our Castellan green. I'll get that on my palette and I'll be right back. Alright, now that we've got our Castellan green, it is time to start painting. With this, and with how thin and light this model is, we're using our small layer brush. We just want to paint all of the cloth that is on her chest down here into the leaves, and anything you can get on the back. So I'm going to get that started and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. Alright, there we go. We've got some green added to her. I'm going to do this video a little bit differently from my other ones. We're going to do this stuff in kind of blocks. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to take our Athonian camo shade and we're going to cover that over all of the green parts. You just want to cover all your green in your green shade. So today is going to be done a little bit differently. Instead of doing all the base coats and going, hey, there's a decent color, I think you guys are ready to see and just go straight for, here's what a full paint job looks like. With that, you can definitely tell it's bringing out a lot of the inking, or a lot of the coloring and the shading and the shaping of our miniature. It's just making her stand out already, and this just looks amazing, and we really haven't done anything to it. With that, we've got our Athonian camo shade done. So, while that is drying, let's move on to the next step. I think we're going to do the next big piece, which looks like it's going to be her armor on her arms and legs. So we're going to switch over to Ushabti Bone. Nope, I lied. We're going to switch over to Xandrie Dust. I got to learn which paints I'm using. So I'm going to prep that on, and I'll show you exactly where we're going to put that in a minute. All right, we've got our Xandrie Dust ready. Sorry, didn't mean to scream and scare you guys awake. And we're going to do this over all of her armor down here on the feet. You want to watch her arms and armor. And got a little extra light here, and we're just going to do all of her there. Cover this all up. So I'm going to do all of the legs. You do want to watch out for the little knobby part because that's actually her real knee. And we're going to paint that in a different color altogether. So I'm going to do all of this. So I'm going to just tidy that up and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. Alright, with that we've got our Xandrie Dust added. It does quite a contrasting color there, which is alright. So the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to do this again in blocks. So we're going to add our Agrax Earthshade, and while that's drying, we'll move on to another color, or we'll move back to our green. Haven't decided yet. But while we're working, get some Agrax Earthshade, and we just apply it to all of the armor. This will deepen this color. It'll darken it up quite a bit. It'll cover up any minor mistakes you may have made. You want to make sure that it does not pool. But this will also start showing some of the depth of this model too. Now it's okay, as you see I just got it into the kneecap there. That's alright. We'll move on to a different color anyway. So we're not going to worry about the skin right now. But we do want to get all of the model covered in Agrax Earthshade, and we'll move to a different color to show you what to do while we're waiting. So we'll get all of that. We'll get the back here. So there you go. Just like that. We have our Xandrie Dust done. So the next one we're going to do, oh, and update on some of our colors if you've been following along and wanting to make sure you have all the colors. One I chose right away that I forgot to announce, Retributive Armor Gold, and we're going to use that for some of the gold filigree that is all around her model. From the card standpoint, we're going to use it for like the back of the dagger and towards the handhold on the bow. And then also for her armor that we just did in Xandrie Dust. After we do a Ushabti Bone, we're going to go up to the Flayed One Flesh. So we're just going to bring it up even more. So here's the next color that we're going to work on. We're going to use Stegodon Scale Green. What that one we're going to use for is we're going to use that to paint the entire bow and the quiver and the back. So I'm going to get that ready and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. Alright, now that we got our Stegodon Scale Green prepped, we'll show you where we're going with that. We're going to start here, and that's alright if we cover up certain things on this one because we will go over it. We want to get all the underneath anyway. This one we want to get all the way up to where the hand is and stop. And the other spot we're going to put this is across the quiver. So that is what we're going to do. I'll get that working, I'll clean that all up, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. And with that, we've got our first highlight of our teal blue for our wood and our quiver on. So we're going to go in right away to another ink or shade. And this time we're going to use Coelia Green Shade. And just shade over everything that we just painted that blue-green. So we got all of this. This and this. So I'm just going to tidy that up and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. I'll be right back. Alright, with that we've got one more of our main base colors and inks done. So now it's time to move on to the next big feature of this model, and that's going to be her hair. So we're going to use our Steel Legion drab that I've used for pretty much all of our hair for Massive Darkness, and you just want to make sure that it gets covered. Show you what that looks like in a minute. Alright, there you go. We now have the hair done, and give you a little bit of a closer up look here. Add a magnifying lens to that, and you can see that's there. So we've got a couple of things. I did go back, and now that I'm done goofing around, I did go back and I realized that the dagger sheath should be the same color green as everything else. So I did color that in green. We left the top of it brown or gray because we're going to paint that in gold when we get that far. The next two colors that I'm going to do, got Mourn Fang Brown and XV88. Mourn Fang Brown we're going to use for the arrows. XV88 we're going to use, as we use everywhere else, for our leather. So we're going to do, in fact I'll start doing that right now here for you. We're going to do the belt. Yep, the belt. The pouch right here. And then we're also going to do the pouch back here. Now you want to make sure that you're starting to be a little more careful with every new color that you add, because we are starting to get, you know, a lot of coloring going on here. So I'm going to clean this all up for you, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. Alright, with that we've got to, as I shake the camera and rock your world, people, with that we've got our two more colors on. So if you notice, we didn't add a color to the, or a shade to the hair yet, because we were going to do it all at the same time. So we're going to add Nuln Oil to her hair. Why am I adding Nuln Oil? Oh yeah, I'm adding Nuln Oil. Sorry folks, my brain just shut down while we're painting. Never a good sign. We're going to do her Nuln Oil on her hair. We're also going to do Nuln Oil on the arrows and on our pouches. So I'm going to take that, I'll do that real quick, and I'll be right back. Alright, with that we've got our Nuln Oil applied to all of our leathers and our hairs. As you start looking, you just want to make sure that it's not pooling too badly. Well, I did make a audible, as you want to call it, for you sporting fans. I'll make a small change here in the flesh tones. I'm going to use Arcadian flesh tone as our base layer instead of Bugman's Glow. And just use that. Make sure that's thinned down. We're just going to paint over every part of her skin that's showing. We're just going to go real quick because there's not a lot of skin showing on this model. You got her face. You got her hands here. You got her kneecap for some god-awful reason. Not really sure why, but hey, she's an elf and we don't question. So you got the two hands. And her face. I'm going to just tidy that all up and I'll be right back. And with that, we've added some flesh tone to her. We're pretty much done with this model. We're going to add one quick shade. And then I would say if you wanted to stop, this would be a good place to stop. I'm going to add a blob and pull it down of Reikland Flesh Shade. And that's just going to darken her up and give her some depth to her facial features a little bit. And then we'll do that also on her hands. And that'll actually show you, and you can see there on the camera, that it does bring in, you know, the knuckles and the fingers a little bit. Kind of gives you some depth of that. So we've got that. We want to pick that knee out for whatever reason the knee is showing. I don't know. That just doesn't seem very defensive at all, but that's neither here nor there. But with that, honestly, let me move the camera a little bit here. I would say that is honestly a good place to stop if that's where you wanted to stop. We have added quite a bit of colors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We've got 12 colors on this model. And so it's a lot of colors today. But I think she looks amazing. This would be a good place to stop if you wanted to stop. Otherwise, let's continue. So the next one we're going to use, I can crack open my paint pot, is Straken Green. We're going to start going over that green armor. So I'm going to prep that for you, and I'll get ready to show you what we got. Alright, so now we are on to our layers and highlights. So we're starting with Straken Green. And this one we're going to want to get most of the armor. You want to leave some of that shade in there. So when you get close to an edge, or any place where your shade may have pooled, interestingly, you want to leave that the way it is. So we're going to bring this, and this is just going to actually bring this up a lot. So instead of it looking like deep forest, it's going to start looking like younger forest. So I'm going to tidy that up, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. Alright, with that, she has gotten a lot brighter in her foresty camo armor, but we're not done, so we're going to add a layer of Nurgling Green. This one we're going to do as an edging highlight. And you're just going to want to kind of pick out the edges of the leaves. Like this. As far as the chest plate goes, we want to do the top half. And the under boob, as it would be. Yes, I just said under boob on YouTube multiple times. We want to leave that a little bit darker to start showing the contrasts of light. So I'm going to go through and do this. This is going to be one of your more extensive steps to do, because this will take you some time. And remember, if you've thinned down your paints properly, you're going to want to go over this with multiple thin coats, because you don't want the paint to show through. So I'll go working on that, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. And with that, we've added all of our green colors. I decided instead of doing with an edge highlight, I'd kind of just flutter it all in there and kind of mix it in there, leave some of the dark showing throughout. So I'll give you a little look and see what I did here. I think that makes it nice and bright. And remember, we're trying to compare it to that / that. So she is very brightly hidden, or brightly shining. So the next one we're going to do our blues. We're going to work on that bow and the quiver. And this one, I'm not sure what this is going to look like, so yeah, this is a little too bright for me. So if you screw up like I just did, just go ahead and flood your paint like this. Get yourself a cloth and whoop, wipe it all off. Bam, it's gone. So I don't like that. That's too bright. So what we're going to do, since we still have our paint on here, is we're actually going to do what's called an edge highlight. We're just going to edge literally the edge of it. I don't like that either. I like the blue that's there, and I think the gold is going to set it off. So we're just going to... And with that, we've got all of our greens done. With the Nurgling Green, I decided to highlight up a lot more than I was thinking of. And I think that brings just a bright, light green armor to her. And I just think that's going to make a nice change on the battlefield. Remember, we always consider these things about arm's length. So at that range, it's going to look, I think, pretty decent on your board game table. So with that, we're going to move over to our tans. We're going to work with Ushabti Bone. And we're going to go through all of her armor and pretty much do the exact same thing we just did with all the greens. We're going to highlight this twice with Ushabti Bone and then Flayed One Flesh. And we're going to bring those up another color or two, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. I'll be right back. Alright, with that, we've got our Ushabti Bone done, and we're going to go up one more layer, a little bit brighter. It's Flayed One Flesh. And we're just going to kind of go over most of what we just did, just to give it a more lighter, gossamer look to it. I just almost want to go over every band that you just did in Ushabti and do that again in Flayed One Flesh. And then we'll be nearly complete. We only have 2 more colors sitting over on the side here, and that's going to be Kislev Flesh and Retributor Armor Gold. So I'll show you what you got in a minute. Alright, with that, we have all of our armor done. She's got like that tannish armor, the green body armor. Starting to look pretty freaking awesome in my book, at least in my opinion. So now we're going to switch over to Kislev Flesh. There. And we're going to highlight up all of the flesh tones. We got to make her more, I don't know, pale. That pale elf tone. So I will work on that and show you what it looks like in a second. Right back. Alright, there's the first layer. So we're going to go back to our Flayed One Flesh here, and we're going to put that on top of our Kislev. And that's going to lighten her skin up even more. And that's what you're looking for, is that bright, almost white, very pale skinned elf. So we've got that. So I'll clean that up and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. With that, we've got a bright white face. We will go back and revisit. I've kind of put a little bit of ink into her eyes to kind of deepen the eye socket area. So we'll get back to that. But for now, what we're going to do, we're going to switch over while that dries. We're going to use our Retributor Armor Gold. This is going to go on the pommel here, as well as the hilt that's right there, and the top filigree. It is the banding at the hands there, and then finally it will also go as detail right here. So I'm going to clean that all up and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. Alright, with that we have all of our colors finally applied. I did go back and change the face and just layered over the Flayed One Flesh with the back with the Kislev Flesh because I thought her face and her armor looked too much the same and almost like she was wearing a, I don't know, a dead skin mask than her actual face. I am not one to paint eyeballs as I do not have a steady enough hand, so that is why my eyeballs are not painted. But if we turn it there, hold it out at arm's length, for the most part, that is where you're going to see your model, is from there to there-ish. It's very hard-pressed that you will see it, you know, even closer than that. So if you want to try and do it, what I would suggest doing, there's a couple of ways you can do this on the model. I'm not going to do it. But since she has kind of a dark outline in her eyes there, I would actually suggest taking your Nuln Oil. You drop a bit into each of the eyeballs and clean it out. And that kind of gives you that eyeshadow look. Using your Flayed One Flesh, I would then go in and do that. And that would be your iris. No, not the iris. Just the whites of the eyes. And if you want to get really fancy, you can then take a color and try and dot on the insides of her eyes. But, again, I don't have the steady enough hand to do it. So that's what we got for you. I've based it in, as I've done all of mine, in Dawnstone. And that's one Sybil, the Dark Elf or the Nightshade Ranger for Massive Darkness. This has been another Jafo Paints video. If you would like to see something else painted, another or a specific figure, please put it in the comments down below. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun YouTube-y stuff. and we'll see you on the next painting video. Thanks. Bye-bye.